Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into one of the most intense global events we've seen recently, the June 2025 Israel-Iran conflict.
Yeah, and it's significant because this wasn't just another proxy fight.
No, this was direct. The first major military clash between them in, well, decades?
Right, involving big global players, too. It's really shifted things in the Middle East.
Definitely.
So our aim today really is to cut through all the noise. We want to give you a clear, solid understanding of what actually went down, why it's so important, and, what the fallout looks like now.
Kind of the essential brief on it all.
Exactly. Your shortcut to getting properly informed without wading through everything yourself.
Okay, so let's map it out. We'll look at the background, how this all started simmering.
Yeah.
Then the actual operations, the tactics used, who else got involved internationally.
Right, the global dimension.
The impact, of course, human material. And then the ceasefire we have now, which feels, well, fragile.
Very fragile. And we'll definitely look ahead a bit to what might come next.
Okay, so setting the scene. This thing exploded fast. We're talking June 12th to June 24th, just under 2 weeks.
Breathtakingly fast, yeah.
And you mentioned Operation Rising Lion. That seemed to be the spark.
That was the immediate trigger, yes, Israel's operation. But the kindling, the deeper reasons, they go way back. Decades of shadow wars, proxies fighting across the region.
Syria, Lebanon, Yemen.
Exactly. And crucially, Israel's long-held stance on Iran getting nuclear capabilities.
So not out of the blue, more like a pot boiling over.
Precisely. Israel launched what they called Operation Rising Lion. It was framed as preemptive, targeting Iranian nuclear sites, specifically, and senior military commanders.
So a very direct hit at strategic assets.
A very direct hit, not just responding to something, but actively trying to degrade Iran's most sensitive capabilities.
And Iran's response?
Swift, it seems.
Very swift. Just a day later, June 13th. And large scale, over 150 ballistic missiles launched towards Israel.
Wow.
And about 100 drones on top of that. A massive barrage.
That really escalated things dramatically. Absolutely. But let's go back to Israel's initial move, because targeting the nuclear sites is key here. What were they aiming for?
You mentioned facilities.
Yes, reports indicate they hit, and hit hard, the centrifuge facilities. Places like Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan.
And remind us, the centrifuges are critical
For enriching uranium.
Oh.
They're the core tech you need if you want to produce fissile material, potentially for a weapon.
So striking those is a very clear message. A red line being enforced.
Undeniably.
Okay.
And Israel wasn't acting entirely alone in its offensive actions.
Right. The U.S. got involved. How?
They provided their own strikes. B-2 bombers were used, cruise missiles.
B-2s, that's significant. Stealth bombers.
It's a major signal, shows reach, penetration capability without needing nearby bases. A real statement of commitment and power projection.
Okay, so Iran launches this huge counterattack. Missiles, drones, that must have caused panic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Alarms went off across Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and obviously Israel itself.
But many were intercepted. We heard about Iron Dome.
A lot were, yes, Israel's Iron Dome, but also other systems, potentially David's Sling, Arrow. It wasn't just Iron Dome, though it gets the headlines. What this conflict really showed was maybe a turning point in defensive tech.
So?
It suggested that, well, maybe these massive missile and drone swarms aren't unstoppable anymore. If you have the right systems, you can significantly blunt the attack.
So it changes the calculation for attackers.
Potentially, yes. It forces a rethink of that whole asymmetric warfare strategy. It's not just about protection, it's about changing the deterrence game.
That interception rate really is something else, a showcase for defense tech.
Definitely.
So things are heating up. The U.S. is actively supporting Israel. Who else got drawn in?
Well, France played a role, too. They apparently shot down some Iranian drones heading towards Israel.
Interesting. So wider European concern showing there.
Seems so. And on the diplomatic front, China was pushing for a ceasefire.
Did they have much leverage in the moment?
It appeared limited in terms of stopping the immediate fighting. More of a longer-term player, perhaps.
Okay, let's talk about the impact. The human cost must have been significant.
It was, tragically. In Israel, reports mentioned at least 28 killed, many more injured.
And on the Iranian side?
The numbers reported were higher, in the hundreds, and crucially, this included some key figures.
Like who?
Top nuclear scientists, according to reports, and also senior commanders from the IRGC.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, losing key personnel like that.
That's a strategic blow, beyond just the immediate casualties. And then there's the material damage.
To the nuclear sites, obviously.
Yes, significant damage there, though the full extent is hard to verify independently. But also military infrastructure more broadly, and sadly, civilian areas too in both countries.
It really highlights the vulnerability, doesn't it, even with defenses?
It does, and the psychological impact, the fear, the insecurity that lingers long after the bombs stop falling.
So after nearly 2 weeks of this intense back and forth, a ceasefire, U.S. brokered around June 24th.
Yes, a collective sigh of relief globally, I think.
Okay.
But as you said, it's fragile.
Very. A ceasefire isn't a peace treaty. The underlying tensions are all still there.
Absolutely. And the diplomatic machinery kicked in almost immediately. The UN, the EU, other major powers, all trying to stabilize things.
And the big focus now is
Reviving those nuclear negotiations, trying to get Iran back to the table and find some way forward.
which brings us to this enrichment showdown idea. Iran's facilities took a hit, but they're saying they'll continue the program.
That's the core issue right now. Despite the damage, Iran insists it won't stop its nuclear activities.
Is that about capability, or is it more political?
It seems like both, but perhaps more about national pride, strategic defiance now. They won't be seen to buckle under military pressure.
Which makes diplomacy incredibly difficult.
Extremely. How do you find a solution that respects their position but also addresses international concerns about proliferation? It's a tough balancing act. The talks are happening, but yeah, major hurdles remain.
And the whole region is watching. Neighboring countries, global markets, especially oil.
Still very much on edge. Any small incident could potentially spark something again. The long-term stability of the Middle East feels, well, uncertain.
It's a real shift, isn't it? From shadow wars to direct, open conflict.
It really is. So just to kind of wrap up the key points we've covered, this was fundamentally the first direct military fight between Israel and Iran in the modern era.
With the U.S. actively involved militarily.
Yes, and that marks a huge change in the strategic landscape there.
And the effects went beyond the region.
Definitely. We saw immediate impacts on energy markets, and it really stretched global diplomacy to its limits.
So, thinking about this for you, our listener, why does understanding all this matter? Well, these aren't distant events anymore. The ripple effects, they reach globally, security, economics, even the price you pay for things. It shows how connected everything is.
Exactly. And looking forward, here's the critical point to keep mulling over. We have this U.S.-brokered ceasefire from around June 24th. But Iran, even with damaged facilities at Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan, is adamant about continuing its nuclear program.
The enrichment showdown.
Precisely. Diplomacy is in full swing, UN, EU trying to stabilize, restart talks. But it's tough. So what happens next? With Iran's nuclear path, with the regional tensions that haven't gone away, with the impact on global markets, particularly oil?
How stable is this tense calm, really?
That's the question. What are the long-term consequences going to be for the Middle East and really for everyone else as the world tries to manage this nuclear standoff? Something to keep a close eye on.